Yeah, I mean, Bitcoin often reacts to liquidity changes before the traditional markets, earning a reputation among macro traders as a canary asset. If you're familiar with the canary in the coal mine analogy, in the coal mines they bring a canary down because if it keels over and dies, that means there's some kind of a gas leak or oxygen problem, and in this case, tightening signals ahead of broader equity sell-offs. All right, so heavy pre-pricing. Yeah, so the market's priced 6 months, 12 months into the future before they happen, so a lot by the time things, that's why you have buy the rumor, sell the news. They're pricing things in for 3 to 6 months, so when it actually gets to that point, then they can sell it off and sell the news. Yeah, by the time the cut occurs, asset prices might actually reflect it. Context matters. Cuts driven by economic stress or financial instability can coincide with de-risking. In such environments, investors tend to reduce exposure to volatile assets. Right, we've covered that. All right, let's see. Spending too much time on this is a very long article. Bitcoin is a liquidity-sensitive, high beta asset. High beta just means that correlates more one-to-one with the regular assets, dollar down in Bitcoin, dollar down in the markets, or the betas, I'm guessing around 85% or 85, I don't know, maybe more. And so suggests that Bitcoin behaves less like a policy rate, more like a real-time gauge of liquidity conditions. Yeah. Infographic there, what lies behind it, Fed balance sheet, Treasury cash management. I don't know we want to get into all this. Total assets, less eliminations from consolidation. If anyone wants the link to this article, I'll drop it in there and you can dive into it. Basement Coin Telegraph. All right, that's about it. I'm going to pull up one Bitcoin bullish article here. When will the Bitcoin start a new bull cycle toward 150K? Look for these signs. And yeah, let's do that. When will Bitcoin start a new bull cycle? Let's see. Link, please. All right. There you go, Nicola, for the link. And you can always Google these on Cointelegraph, but I can drop these if you want. So they're saying when we'll look for these signs. Bitcoin could still reach 150K by the year end. I think that's possible, but some things have to be in place, some tailwinds, such as Bitcoin hold the 200-week SMA and see new investor flows turn positive. When will that happen? Clarity Act, Market Structure Bill, QE, bottom line. Sideline capital, right, that's money on the sidelines. Again, waiting for the Market Clarity Act. Let's just call it one big thing, the Market Clarity Structure Act plan thingy in both. So, and the quantum threat. The quantum threat, I don't think that's, I don't know. I think at some point maybe we could see something, but it's not now. And Saylor had a good argument again. The thing is, if they can hack the 256 hash rate for Bitcoin, that's way harder than getting into your bank and the governments. So it's not like that'll be the big surprise. Anyway, more rate cuts from the Fed. I guess so. More rate cuts. Well, that's the other thing that's hurting the market too, is that the new Fed chair is having more hawkish comments. But he might just be saying that, and then Trump just takes him golfing and threatens to beat him with the putter if he doesn't drop interest rates. So Bitcoin must hold above the key trend line here, right? So we looked at that, the 200-week SMA. We are right above that, just holding that barely. So we could push out of that, but it's not something that I would be taking a chance on. And so, or our other signals like that Gaussian channel have me more concerned than this being a bullish-ish. And so, but yeah, Bitcoin holding above the 200-week SMAs reduce the odds of a prolonged 2022 style capitulation, and that would be fine. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what I was saying. It keeps the path open for a new bull phase. It might take a little longer and reduce the odds of a deep, longer cycle low and an FTX style collapse. And I would say that because we didn't get the parabolic rise, we're less likely to have the attached FTX collapsing lows because there's going to be less of that volatility, and that's okay. I think as this this asset class becomes more mature, we'll see that. We'll see less of the parabolic and then the huge dumps. And that's why that regression curve, that Bitcoin regression curve, does even out a bit. And so we certainly should and could get to that orange bar or 150K in the next bull phase. And and CZ came on and did an interview yesterday and said he said he thinks that 2027 will be the super cycle. So maybe that kicks off, I think, end of the year. Q3, we get all the stuff out of the way, and then we kind of start pushing up higher. I don't want to get into on-chain metrics, you guys. Bitcoin new money flow has been doing negative. This is just going to make your eyeballs hurt. But here's one we'd already talked about. Sidelined tether must flow back into crypto. That's the Bitcoin or the USDT dominance chart. Oops, not that one. Here, right? Sidelined tether. This is sidelined tether. I'll move the blue out. This is money, dollars, flowing out of crypto into tether. So they're calling it sidelined tether, which it is, but certainly it looks like it will get worse before it gets better. Now, what we could see is this little reversion, a couple week bounce and pullback. And this fractal is not going to be exactly the same, but it can be very similar. People say that it rhymes. I just never liked that analogy. But anyway, a little too corny. Rising USDT dominance, right? We looked at that. Market cap, this is what we just looked at. This is old. We're up above 8%. And not sure what their chart is. We already covered that with my own chart, which is way better, I must say. Quantum fears must subside. Let's see. This is old news, though. Because with the Willow chip that's claimed to have achieved quantum whatever, they also said, yeah, but it still can barely... I'm going to use an analogy from Florida with all the big hurricanes and everyone get all freaked out and Category 4, Category 5, it's coming. Everyone would go and buy all the plywood in Home Depot and then everyone would post memes how the wind blew over their deck chair. And that's it. So there's always a lot of hype around these things. Now, so there's two levels of this. And the older addresses and certainly the wallets that might still only just have a password, because in the early days you just had a password, right? And then they went to the 12 passphrases, which a lot of you guys use now. But the older wallets that may just have still the password, and many because they were lost, those might get hacked. That's possible. But the newer ones, if you've got it on a cold storage, you're pretty well secure. If you've got it on like Coinbase or something else and you're using 2FA, it's pretty well secure. So the point is the quantum threat isn't there yet. They can't do the kind of calculations that it would take. At least as far as, unless China's over there, or India, or not India, but Iran, any of our unfriends, not friends, North Korea, they might be trying. But here's what it says. Yeah, Adam Back. So let's listen to someone who actually knows what they're talking about. In November 25, cryptographer, that's what he does, Blockstream CEO Adam Back, possibly Satoshi, he's not Satoshi, I think, but he was early, said Bitcoin faces no meaningful quantum threat for 20 to 40 years. Adding the network can be quantum... Try that again. Adding the network can be quantum ready well before it becomes a real problem. There. So... Anyway, I wouldn't worry about that. Coinbase and Strategy have launched initiatives bringing in experts mapping out a roadmap for Bitcoin security upgrades. They can do it. If Saylor's behind it and Brian Armstrong are behind it, then most likely, they'll have the node operators say, all right, yeah, we should do that. 10 plus years away. So even if we cut it in half, maybe it's 5 years away. I don't know. Sorry, guys, I'm not... pauses 9. Yeah, and this is also bad. So the joblessness, we're getting fed all this wrong data. They'll like, hey, joblessness is fine. And then the markets react, or we don't get a rate cut, and then they quietly adjust the numbers. This is nothing new. They'll quietly adjust the numbers a month or two later and say, oh, actually, well, they're not fine, but we'll just not say anything. And we'll adjust them higher or lower. But So the reason I bring this up, Bitcoin reacts to major U.S. jobs data beat. And what that means, if jobs data seems better, these came in higher, then we're less likely to get a rate pause, which is what we want. And so we go down here to the FOMC FedWatch tool. It's going to probably say 95% chance no rate cut. Something like that. 92.1% there in March. So, there we go. We're not getting a rate cut in March. These do change over time. Sorry, guys, I got some on my lip. So there you go. Let's keep going here. Analysis, Fed interest rate. I can't speak today. I didn't have enough caffeine, I think. Fed interest rate pause to continue. Yeah, the pause is going to continue. It's going to take probably, I think, around April, May. We'll have the new Fed chief kind of walk back his comments. Unless or else Trump's going to hit him with the putter, and then that'll use that as a catalyst, and they'll start printing money, and then we're going to have a nice bounce. I don't know, but right now, when in doubt, stay out. I'm not going to talk about non-farm payrolls or any of this stuff. Here we go. So hey, look, my guess was pretty good. It was 94%. Apparently, yesterday the Fed pause will continue. Markets don't like that. They want interest rates lower. Next article, Hong Kong, green lights, crypto margin. How are we doing on time? Yeah, we'll be wrapping up right at 1:30. Hong Kong green lights, crypto margin financing and perpetual trading. Now why is that? Why do all these places love perpetual trading and margin financing? Because the house always wins. And the retail market is full of degenerate gamblers, especially in Asia. And I've been reflecting on this lately, how, if your neighbor stole $1,000 from you or owed you $10,000, you would never leave it alone. You'd be like, this is not okay. I need that money. But whereas when these market makers manipulate price and the prices go down and you're down $1,000 or $5,000, we rationalize it, how it's okay. Maybe we did something wrong. We need to improve our skills. And I think we're in a different environment, and that's why I don't gamble. The slot machines are fun in Vegas. Some people do well, but really they don't. They are mathematically designed to take your money, and they're very good at it. And so are the markets. So what this says, translation here, Hong Kong green lights crypto margin financing and perpetual trading because they want to get in on the game. Bybit, BitGet, all these Singapore-based margin, they're minting billions of dollars. They're stealing it. Completely manipulated. I've seen it. I've experienced it. And I thought our safe haven was in the spot market, but it isn't. And so anyway, we'll kind of see how things play out. But that's why I'm just out of this market. It's too treacherous. It's too treacherous on low volume as well. And just to point that out, what I mean by that, we get lured into all of this. And the patterns and everything, but when the volume is going down, we're more likely to get whipsawed, and the market maker algos and AIs can move the price around. They can do that. When there's a huge run up on high volume, they're less able to do it and manipulate because the money's too great. The money flow, the momentum. You see back here in November of 24 and back in October of 24, huge buy blocks, kind of inching up higher, got above the moving averages, volume steady, and then boom, volume surged, and we had this huge push up higher. That meant that rally was real. Increase in volume, prices going higher. Till we got to the top. volume dipped. We had a lull, right? A lull, and then we saw volume go up again. We hit the new high, and prices started to go down, and then we started to see volume increasing in red, but on the downside. That just means the move is real, and that's a little harder to read. And hopefully, you guys, I want to point that out so it's not new to you. So what we are looking for, then back here we saw a surge in volume, green going higher, but right now and all through here. So right now though, we're seeing a surge in bearish volume as we go down, and there was some speculation here by a by a person who has no credibility, Jim Cramer, suggested that the Trump administration has 60,000 as their buy to start filling the treasury. But there's no credible evidence to that, and certainly we are the Wizard of Oz. We are behind the curtain. We have huge sell pressure here. I think once this breaks on a closing basis, we're going to head down to 52. I believe if we do hold 60K, maybe we chop around in here. If we start putting in higher lows, then we could do possibly something like this. But I don't know. At this point, I don't see a V recovery likely. I think probably, like this, more likely. And then time-wise into April, summer, and then we start to get back up in here in later in October. So I would not be planning on or hoping to make back a bunch of money anytime soon, unless you want to short. Sam asked what altcoins would I short? Probably Bitcoin, ETH, Solana. Solana's in a red zone with no buy blocks and all the way down to 30 on the daily chart. Let's see about weekly. Well, okay, in a weekly chart, yeah, so Solana could come down on this $50 range. I could see that. So if we shorted Solana down into this range, I think that would be a good altcoin. These other ones are too low volume. And Nicole says, does the volume measure include the big institutional buys? It's a good question because it does not include that on over-the-counter. But for the most part, they are lockstep. And if they're buying and selling over the counter, it doesn't directly affect price anyway. I know, it's a little bit complicated. So overall, yes, and then it will show the ETF flows on the volume as well. So it's a good rule of thumb. But what do we have right now? We have volume collapsing. Our biggest clue here is the sell block. It's not likely it's very likely we drop from here. So there's that. All right, let's see. Anything else we want to talk about here? We've got Hong Kong Green Lights crypto margin trading. We talked about that already. So we have that. Ethereum holders in full scale. Yeah, this is one I saw. Full scale accumulation. Don't believe that. Don't believe the news. They're probably not buying it at 2,000. They're probably putting in buy orders at 1,600, as I showed you, because we can see that's where the buyers are. Because if they were buying a lot of it at 2,000, they would be holding at 2,000. And let's take a look at the ETFs real quick. I think it's kind of good to know. Actually, that's far side here. Actually, yesterday saw a little bit of buying on the ETFs. Solana, no. But at least the heavy selling has stopped. But we're not seeing prices push higher. And then Ethereum, nothing really yesterday to speak of. And I think I goofed. I said the wrong thing a minute ago. Solana continuing to buy. Saw some sell pressure. Let me just correct my gaffe. Which was, I said this was Solana, and I was wrong. This is all Bitcoin. These are different ETFs. So some buying from iBit, some buying from Fidelity. Zero, this is ARK. I think that's Kathy Wood. No, that's Bitwise. And but Kathy Wood was buying ARK Invest. Who was the biggest buyer yesterday? Interesting. And anyway, grayscale. That's all about that. Okay, over the counter. All right, so Nicole is asking over the counter. Yeah, so I'll explain it. And essentially, think of it this way. Let me get to a chart. Over the counter is where big buyers and sellers can go and sell lots of Bitcoin, Ethereum, whatever, for whatever price they want to. Think of it this way. Back in the 1900s, they issued bearer bonds and bearer shares. So if you physically had the papers that said you own 1,000 shares of XYZ Railroad, right? If you had those, you were the bearer. You could sell them. If your house burned down in the fire and they burned up, they were gone. But what it also meant is if you needed money, let's say you bought them for $100, and maybe you really needed money, you could go to your neighbor and say, hey, give me $50 for these, and I'll sell them to you. Now, there was a price kind of in the market, which was not digital back then, obviously, but it wouldn't move the price because it didn't really affect supply and demand. You could sell it to your neighbor. So now over the counter is generally for the bigger buyers like Michael Saylor and Strategy and institutions and so forth. So let's say they want to buy 10,000 Bitcoin and or something like that. They can go into the over the counter market and put it out there, or maybe they have a broker that knows the right people, and then someone else might be like, okay, sure, yeah, I'll sell you those, and here's the price that I want for it, and it's totally off the books. And so the only thing that it kind of does is it might dilute some supply and demand. It just won't directly affect the price. And so in the end, you might as well ignore it. You just can't do anything about it. And generally, we don't know about it until later anyway. So chances are, Saylor, a lot of this. If you're wondering why it's like Michael Saylor buys XYZ, he's not going necessarily to Coinbase and doing it, and he's doing it all over the counter. A lot of times from the miners as well. The Bitcoin miners, let's say they mined this at 50K and it's, they wrote it up to 120K and now it's down to like 75K, and, and they might even get a better price. And you're Michael Saylor, you're like, hey, I want 10,000 Bitcoin. And they're like, well, that's, you can't get it on the open market, but I'll sell it to you for a little bit above market. And he might say, sure. Does that make sense? But it's not information that's necessarily useful for us. Because I'll leave it there. All right, so just looking through these, we talked about Zcash might be putting in a bit of a bounce bottom here, but I wouldn't be buying anything. Let's finish off the news and then I'll let you guys go. Ether, I just don't really care about Ether. Ethereum ETF holders are sitting in a worse position than their Bitcoin ETF brethren. The current ETH price of 2,000 is way below their average cost basis of ETF holders at about 3,500. It's a painful proposition, but it's one that ETF holders have experienced already, right? So a lot of the people that bought ETH ETFs bought in a much higher, and now the price is under 2,000. So what should they do? Should they take the loss? Should they hold on? Let's see. It says investor confidence has not fully eroded. CryptoQuant showed ETH accumulation addresses have received 1.3 Ether. Sorry, guys. I'm just going to start combining words. 1.3 Ether is now, from now on, stands for 1 million Ether. Deal? All right, worth 2.6 billion at current rates. I'm speeding through this because none of it really matters. Show me the price. This is all just noise. Key ETH prices to watch below 2,000. I bet you they say 1,600. Let's see. They're saying 1,800, 1,850. But I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe, but I see 1,600. We'll see. I would wait let the price come to you. If you want to put your buy limit orders in. What's going on here? I can get this over in the right place. On Ether at 1,600, you could do that because that's where the buyers are. Why do you rob banks? Because that's where the money is. Don't do that, but why put the buy limit here? There's no reason at 1850 just because came down to there, and maybe that holds, but there's no. Well, let's see. On a weekly chart, the weekly chart's even worse. It says 1500. There's a bunch of buyers down at 1,000. If you get ETH at 1,000, buy it all day long. I just a lot of this news is designed to get retail back in early, and so don't believe it. Uniswap in a lawsuit, patent infringement, banker, Uniswap sort of patent claim, abstract not eligible protection. Oh, they're suing. They were challenging the patent. Wild Wild West, you guys. Well, it's true that software patents especially hard to claim because they're abstract ideas, so they probably get thrown out. But I'm going to reread that later because I have a reason to look into that. Spot Bitcoin ETFs add 167 million, nearly erase last week's outflows. Is that written by somebody who knows English? Spot Bitcoin ETFs add 167 million. Nearly erased last week's outflows. I guess that works. Yeah. Well, whatever. I think we're done. You guys, so any questions? Nicola saying, let's see, over the counter, got it. Let's see, do you know what the miners are earning? No idea. No, I don't know. That's a good question for Perplexity or Google. I'm just going to copy and paste. I'm doing this not to be snarky, but to teach you to be resourceful. Because half the time you guys ask me stuff, I just drop it in AI and be like, oh yeah, here's why. I'm mostly kidding, but that's when I need an answer, I'll go to Perplexity. So here's your answer. Here's a long answer. I'm not going to read it. I'm going to just do this. I'm going to be super lazy. I'm going to drop the link for you to go read it. There you go. Anyone who wants to know why, go click on that link. You'll access my Perplexity. And I'll skim it. So, because I don't know, I should probably know. What the miners are earning from the transaction side of their industry aside from the mining of the actual coin. Well, I assume they have a cost basis when they mine it, and if they sell it above that cost, above their miner and energy cost and any staff, then that would be profit. But let's see. All right, so beyond the newly mined coins, miners collect all the transaction fees in the block they successfully mine. That's also true. So if they mine a block, there are transaction fees, they collect that. So they earn money from those, which varies. Every on-chain Bitcoin transaction includes an optional fee. In practice, it's mandatory if you want timely confirmation. So, when you go buy and sell Bitcoin and it goes through all the nodes and everything, there's a fee involved, and the miners collect some of that. And the miners prioritize higher fee transactions from the mem pool. I don't know what that means. The total of these fees, the block is added up to 3.1 block study miners receive about every 10 minutes after 24 halving. All right, normal conditions through the 2025 fees usually made up about 1 or 2% of miner revenue. So it's not a lot. It's 1 to 2% of their miner revenue, with the rest coming from the block subsidy during congested periods and description NFT raises some individual block saw fees equal to or greater than the subsidy. More than 3.125 Bitcoin in fees and some inscription wars blocks. Yeah, we're getting into a little bit deeper conversation with there's all these rewards and subsidies, and if you happen to be the lucky miner that mines the last block or the last hash in the block, you get a special bonus, but you can't count on those. And so let's just get to the bottom. Usually they have a in summary, but I guess not. And these fees they get cut in half every halving too. So and they can only sell half as many coin. The miners make the most of their money. I thought is when they mine a bunch of Bitcoin and then they sell a bunch of it. And it was 12 billion. Miners were selling 12 billion a year prior to the 2024 halving. And by definition, they only could then mine half as much. So the most that they can sell now would be 6 billion. It will be ostensibly higher prices, but that's how the scarcity builds. And this is talking about this, a long term after the mining, block subsidy halves every 4 years until it reaches zero in around 2140 when the 21 million bit cap is reached. At that point, miners rely entirely on transaction fees, but by then, ostensibly, there'll be much more transaction fees at higher prices, and people will be paying for security and censorship resistance. So there was a comment a while back, maybe it was in the chat, how will miners stay alive once the last Bitcoin's been mined? And this is how. This is part of the genius of the Bitcoin white paper, is that it allowed incentives for the miners and the node operators in perpetuity, right, through the transactions. Over time, transactions will go lower in price, but higher in volume, so it nets out. So let's see. Yeah, I mean, go read if you want to know more. I just think it's no point in learning all the rest of this here. The only thing else I'll do, the other thing I'll do is I'll go into the news, especially in here. Pizza 26 stabilized. Goldman Sachs holds about 1 billion Ethereum by crypto ETFs. Major investment in the asset part. Major investors, including Bitmine, have recently accumulated 40,000 ETH, staked an additional 140,000 ETH. That's a bullish sign. They're in it for a long term play. Why is crypto crashing today? I think we've covered it, but and global stocks, digital assets move lower. And the question is why? I mean, this whole thing in Iran, there's a lot of instability in the market, the world. Hearing rumors that Russia's, I'm laughing because it could go either way. I'm like, is this bullish or bearish? It's like when you go to all these restaurants and they have these really strange terms for the men's room, the ladies' room, and you're like, am I a squid or am I a halibut? I don't know. So basically, with India has recently just pulled out of buying Russian gas and oil, and that's a big problem for Russia. Now Russia relies on 60% of Chinese money. China apparently is funding the Ukraine war by 60%, and without that extra oil and gas sales to India, because they're going to start buying from us. I'm not sure how we pulled that off, but there's some, maybe Russia's sort of where kind of the chokehold is on, and maybe they lose the Ukraine war, and maybe at the same time burn up. I mean, there's a whole video on it on who's using who, and China was pretending to be the buddies over in Mexico to get their goods through and not be tariffed, right? And so essentially, because we have NAFTA, we're North America Free Trade Agreement. So China's been sending lots of free materials in, like steel and other things, to build products that are, let's say they're more than half built, but if in the last 20% of it, if in Mexico they're, sticking it together, putting glue and then saying made in Mexico, gets right in. Well, that's been getting cut off also. We're turning the screw to Mexico, saying, hey, if you got to stop doing that or we're going to not sell your products. So President of Mexico apparently saying, hey, Russia or China, yeah, we're not going to do it anymore. So I dare say the winds of change are blowing in our favor, but with all uncertainty comes great risk. And Putin recent saber rattling over the weekend or this week saying if to the West, if you do this, there will be basically hell to pay. And now, I don't know, maybe just political theater and nobody really knows. Maybe it's actually us and Putin teaming up to screw China and get them to leave us alone. And so, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how this is going to play out. But at any rate, liquidations accelerating the drop. Why the market's falling. Analysts say several factors are driving today's crypto decline. Stock market weakness, yes. Liquidations accelerating the drop, yes. And because that triggers more stop losses, which triggers more liquidations and onward. That's why I think we have another capitulation drop down to 50K region on Bitcoin, under 2K, ETH around 1600. But I would suggest be ready to buy those and maybe start putting buy limit orders. Because if we do get that capitulation drop, it does happen fast. And it generally bounces right away. So, but I'm not ready to put that order out just yet. But if you're in cash and you're a little bit more risk tolerant, I'd be putting buy orders in at $1,600 ETH. Not bet the farm. You want to have some left to buy lower if we get there. But if we get a nice quick bounce, those have been some of the best profits over the years. When, like with Solana, when I put a big buy order in the middle of a buy block, and we had a capitulation dump after we were already dropping, and it got bought up right away. I woke up in profit overnight. So Bitcoin behaves like tech stocks. Yes, oversold signals appear. Yeah, we are oversold, but that doesn't mean we need to bounce. Okay, I'll do one last comment from KS here, and then we'll wrap it up. And actually, before I do that, do Bitcoin here. Bitcoin recovering a little bit, but Hong Kong securities improve the framework for licensed brokers to offer margin financing using Bitcoin and Ether collateral. Okay, traders watching Bitcoin 63K support level closely. Drop below this, my lead selling pressure with support. And the thing is, the longer we sit at any level without going up, the more likely any catalyst will drop it down. So if we're not going up, we're likely going down. Just waiting. And I look at this. I like this though. DCG's Barry Silbert. 5 to 10% of Bitcoin will find its way into privacy-focused crypto like Zcash. Bada bing, bada boom. Just not quite yet. Let's see though. Let's read this. Barry Silbert, doubling down on the investment thesis, financial privacy is not just a fundamental right, but also the crypto industry's next big asymmetric bet. Incredibly bullish of Bitcoin as a core part of the diversified portfolio, but I like to invest in projects that are transformative and have 100x, 500, 1000x type returns. Silbert is a longtime Bitcoin backer, said the Bitcoin investor we conferenced next Wednesday. Unless the US dollar completely collapses, Bitcoin is not going up 500x. Okay. I think Zcash can go 500x. I think BitTensor can go 500x. Yeah, we haven't really followed BitTensor. It's pretty expensive, but and okay, so he's a big buyer of that. That's good to know. On the privacy coins, I did want to look at that, and I know they pulled back here a bit. But if they can run again, these we might look back and say these have been some great buying opportunities. But it doesn't mean I want you to run out and buy any of them. I'd say let's let this settle out for a bit. And I'm really gun shy to give any buy recommendations because I just don't want you guys to go follow me blindly and then it doesn't. I mean, Zcash, bullish-ish, but markets not bullish-ish. These are risky, low volume. Super low volume, and that means the market makers are sort of sitting there waiting. They have their fishing rods in the water, and if there's not many fish, they're going to yank at any nibble they get, and that's you and that's me. Time to buy on these is when there's big volume coming in, and then capture that move, and repeat after me. I will sell in the red sell block zone next time. Put your hand on your heart. Start a support group here. Me too. That's so hard because we get up in there and you're like, oh, thank God, I'm making money, I'm doing the math, and then you're like, it's go time, FOMO, we're going to go higher, and then we sort of discount these red sell blocks. We cannot do that anymore. It's a trader's market. Anytime you get in a sell block, you want to sell, take some profits, if not all of it. And green boxes are areas of interest, but not to go ahead and run out and buy. I think Monero is looking strongest-ish, but still decreasing volume, so we're in a waiting game. That's the bottom line. And I'll just touch on it. I mean, you guys didn't ask. Zen been one of the worst trades in a long time for me. But look, the sign was there. There's a great looking breakout came up, tested the channel, came back down again, was holding support, retesting, but then once it started losing this, the final straw was here. But you know, we had all these chances. That's what makes it hard. We have support here, horizontal support. Oh, that didn't last. Oh, well, there's rising support here. Oh, that didn't last. But by here, for sure, I should have been out, and I didn't. And then I drew this line. I'm like, well, this, and then, but finally, with this sell block, I'm like, I got to get out. So I lost a lot of them. This, you know, if you did as well, I apologize. But I am here to tee them up. And but how far they go, I just can't tell. The clue here was the volume, but I also didn't want to chase a Zcash or Dash. I was trying to do a sector 2 rotation, and if we had had a Bitcoin pump, these would have gone for another run up here, but we haven't, and so they're likely to go lower. And I'm going to live to fight another day. So anyway, guys, I've covered a lot today. Hopefully it was helpful. Chaos to see. Did I get to your comment? It's a long one. Tricky for India. While they made some public performative announcements pivoting away from Russian oil, they can't pivot on a dime because their refineries are outfitted to process Russian grade of crude. If they really pivot toward the U.S., which is sweet like crude, they would have to spend billions on retrofitting their refineries. And India's elections coming up. The government. Yeah, I don't know. I'll send you the video. Apparently it's a done deal, but you can't believe everything you see online. And Russia, it's true. So the video said Russia's now heavily discounting its oil, but it's not enough. And subsidizing India's growth and damping inflation. If they pivot away, they would likely negate any savings from reduced tariffs. Okay, well, I thanks for the context. I don't know. I just see what I see on the YouTubes, and you know, I always take it with a grain of salt if it's not an actual person, and it's one of those YouTube generated research, but it seemed credible. Maybe you know, a grain of salt, same thing. All right, guys, I think we've beaten the proverbial dead horse to death. I don't like that phrase, but anyway, it is what it is. I would be out of this market for the most part. I am well past the line in the sand where I wanted to be out, and I'm not happy with myself about that. But you know, look, I'm with you. It's get busy. I'm usually running 6 directions and updating you guys, and you know, then the brain is just mush by the end of the day, and working until 2 in the morning, and you know, my shoulda, coulda, woulda put stop losses on, and just, you know, I'll do it tomorrow, and then next thing you know, broken down. But this is bearish. Tezos, a lot of these. All right, I think I've said all I can say. So that's all, guys. Let's see, one other comment. Time will tell either way. That's true, KS. So thanks, everyone. And if you're watching this replay somewhere other than an M3 or a clips of it, you can learn more at moonstream.io/M3 for this class to be a participant and watch it live next week. So, see you guys.